the hell happened last night? Okay, I remember having people over. Drinks. Fuck, I'm supposed to make a video today. Oh. So as you may remember from last week, we set up an auth service, and this auth service basically wraps around Firebase and allows us to provide authentication. And if you don't remember this, then you might want to check out the link in the description and check out last week's video on how we got this implemented, because we're going to be using a lot of the same concepts we covered in the last video to carry over into databasing. And in this video, we're going to be doing pretty much what we did last video. We're going to show the implementation of just kind of working with the Firestore for databasing, and then we're going to actually wrap it with a service so that way we can use it just like we do our custom auth service. So yeah, here's our application. You can see we can click on the login with GitHub button, and it will give us the login prompt. And then once it's logged in, it will then spit out the user information onto the console so that we can go about kind of seeing that it did work correctly. So one good hot tip that was given by AJ is we actually talked about wrapping this guy in a try catch in order to catch errors since we're using async await. So we're just going to quickly throw that guy in there. Just to show you kind of how this might work. So this lets us basically, there was an error logging in. So this try catch, this lets us wrap around any piece of code, and basically if it runs into any errors and it throws an exception, or it throws an error, it's going to then catch this error. So it's going to try whatever's in this top piece, and then if there are any errors that occur, it will catch that error, and then it'll run what's in the catch. And then here we can actually console log out the error and stuff like that if we wanted to, but we're just going to basically give them an alert that says, hey, there was an error logging in. So really basic. Again, look into this error object when it comes back, and there should be some stuff in the documentation you can check out as well. But there we go. So now we're being good little developers, and we are putting some try catches around our code. Okay, so same exact place, right? But let's say we need to wire this up to some data. So now we've got a user logged in. Maybe each user needs to have a list of to-dos. What we first want to do is wire up Firebase or Firestore. And to do that, we need to implement it, or we need to initialize it first. So if you go to your Firebase console and then you log in, and if you just started a brand new app and you're following along with this video series, this is what you should get. If you click on database, it'll show you the Cloud Firestore. It's kind of the default option. They also used to have a regular Firebase. That's originally what Firebase was it was a JSON data store that live synced to multiple devices, and Firestore is like their new version. It works like more traditional Mongo or other SQL or NoSQL databases in the fact that it uses documents and things like that. And because it uses this structure, it's actually a lot more efficient than the old version. They do have kind of specific use cases. So there are still instances where Firebase, the original Firebase, real-time database might be better for your implementation, but most people should find that the new Firestore suits their needs pretty well. So all you'll have to do is click on this Create Database button. And then once you do, it'll ask you whether you want to start in locked mode or in test mode. And it is pre-selected at locked mode, which is probably the smart thing to do, because this will actually lock down our database and make sure that we can only read and write, or basically we will only be able to read and we won't be able to write to the database. And this is going to make sure that if we have other people see our database or whatever, and for instance, in this video series, right? If you guys see this and try to post data to our database, this will not allow it. It won't allow anyone to write to the database. And then test mode allows everything, but we're going to start in locked mode. And then what it's going to do is set up this basic security rules, and then it's going to spin up our Firestore database so that we can actually get this guy implemented. And once it starts, you'll see something like this. And basically this screen here is just showing you the database. So you can see these are our collections. And if you're coming from the SQL world, so if you're coming from a very relational style databasing language, right, like SQL, you're used to there being tables. And tables hold the different sections of data. And these collections are the closest kind of thing that exists in the NoSQL world. So these collections are basically, you can think of them like a table. They hold rows of data, but instead of rows of data, they're called documents. So each one of these is technically just a document in our collection. So we might have a users collection with a document per user. So that's generally how this works. We can do some stuff that is kind of relational, but in general, that's kind of the difference between a NoSQL versus an SQL database is in a NoSQL database, structure is not rigid and enforced, and you don't really have to really kind of finagle it as much as you do inside of an SQL instance. So when you're working with SQL, you have to create the tables with specifically defined columns and the type of data you can expect in each one. And then you set up the relationships between all the tables. These collections and the way that NoSQL works is a little bit different. It doesn't really care. You just point it to where you want to store data, and whatever format that you save it in is what's going to be there. And this allows us to be a lot more flexible because we can now kind of change stuff on the fly as we need it. But this comes with the drawback of the fact that you have to be a little bit more cognizant about your data structure. So if you decide to store a list of phone numbers, and then 2 months from now you decide to start storing only one phone number, now you're going to have to deal with those two different data types. And so just being cognizant of your data structure and all that stuff is going to be important, but that's where TypeScript can really help you writing definitions and things like that so that you know exactly what your database structure is. And we'll get into more of the nitty gritty of this kind of stuff as we move forward. But for right now, just kind of follow along, especially if this is kind of new to you. So, okay, so now we've got our application. Let's go ahead and when a user logs in, let's go ahead and create them a document in a user collection with their actual, maybe like their name or their email address or something. Because as you saw from our demo here, whenever we actually go about logging in, we get back some information. So we can use this information, for instance, their email. Let's store that in a document. So to do that, first off, we need to wire up to the database, right? So we can open up the documentation here. And you'll see that we've got, we're already open in the Cloud Firestore documentation. If you want a link, it's in the description. It's pretty simple, and here's where they go over the test mode versus lock mode. And then you can see here's all your different options for setting up your development environment. We are going to be in web because we're going to be doing this on the front end. The beautiful thing about Firestore is you can also use it pretty much on any other language or any other platform that you need. So if you wanted to set up something like we've done in several of our projects where you have an instance where it tries to read and do as much as it can from the front end using the web implementation. And then on the back end, you can have something written in PHP or Node or Go or whatever your preferred language is that also talks to this database, so that your API can like talk to this database and do some other things. And so this is just generally how we've kind of done it. And we've already got Firebase installed because we've got auth and all that kind of stuff implemented. So we're ready to jump right here to the implementation, and it is fairly simple. So what we're going to do is up here at the top, we're going to import, just as we did before, we're going to import Firebase from Firebase/app, and then we're going to import Firebase/Firestore. So this is going to get us the libraries we need. You can see that that's this step here. That's going to give us the libraries we need to actually start using Firestore. And we've already initialized our application at this point. We did that in the last video. So it's already initialized, it's already ready to go. We just need to define this guy. So let's go ahead and down here, we will make a new property in our class, and we'll say db is going to equal firebase.firestore.firestore. And this is going to be the instance of our Firestore. So this should be what is returned back when we call the Firebase.Firestore method here. So now we can come down here and let's do a component did load. And then our component did load, we can say this.db equals Firebase.Firestore. And where did I get this typing? Like, how did I know that, right? Like, how did I know that I needed to set this specific typing other than the fact that I've done this 100 freaking times? The reason why I know here is if you actually hover over any method that you run, when you're importing and when you're using the typings from a library, which is the exact reason why you want to do this, is it will actually tell you what is handing back. So you can see here, this is a function, Firebase.Firestore, and you can see there after this colon, that colon there tells us that's what's going to return. So you can see that when we run this method, what returns is an instance of Firebase.Firestore.Firestore capital F. And so that's what we use for this typing up here. You can see that if I use anything else, it's going to throw us some compiler errors. So that's just kind of like how that generally works. And you can see it takes one app instance of Firebase app. So if we wanted to maybe pass in the specific app implementation, we could do that. But now we should, if everything went well, we should have Firestore wired up to DB on our class, and now we can actually start interacting with the database as they show in the rest of this. So let's go ahead and see. Let's make sure we don't get any errors, no compiler errors here, and let's refresh over here. Okay, so it's not throwing any errors, there's nothing bad going on, but there's also nothing happening. So let's go ahead and wire up the creation of a document, and you can see they've given us a lovely little example here. And so we can do that same thing because we're using async. We don't have to use these .thens. So maybe if you wanted, and this is kind of where the try-catch stuff gets kind of interesting, is unlike regularly where you kind of have to like chain .then, .this, .that, and you get into a lot of like what they call callback hell because you're so nested deep between all of these promises. Well, we can just wrap that try-catch around multiple things and then just catch something generically, like catch anywhere in there. If there's a problem with it, catch it and do this. And you can get really specific with it. So if you wanted to have like a fallback kind of code for maybe getting GPS coordinates or something like that, these try-catches come really powerful for that kind of stuff. But we are just going to do this.db. And again, we're going to get our awesome autocomplete. We're going to get our awesome autocomplete because we've used, we're using the Firebase libraries with ES6. We get the autocomplete, so you can see as soon as you type in this.db, it's going to give you all the different things you can do, along with some great documentation. So kudos to the guys at Google for making this as easy as possible. So, okay, so as you can see here, this is handing back, it's either going to do a .then, or it hands back the document reference, or it's going to catch an error of some sort. Again, we're in async. Async, we don't need this, so we can just say const docref equals await. So there we go. So now we've got our document reference, and we're going to add somebody, but we want to add them with their email, And actually, I'm going to jump over. We've actually got another, this is our real database here. And we are going to, we're going to set up an email. And again, remember that over here inside, let's go ahead and console log this stuff. Let me comment this out for a second. So let's go ahead and console log our result one more time. And then let's get the email address and the user ID of this person so that we can go about creating them a specific document for their user. So let's go in and log in. Oh, look at that. Because we have this this error down here from Firebase, it looks like we are indeed getting our try catch to run, which is cool. So let's go and refresh this guy. Okay, there we go. So now we're logging in with GitHub, and then as soon as we finish the login, there is our user information. So now we should be able to get what we need. We needed user.email, and we also need user.uid. Okay, so we're going to run pretty much what they have in the docs here. We're going to say email equals user, result.user. Oh my God, stop auto-completing. Result.user.email. So there we go. So now we've got our result user.email. That's going to be saved under this document, but we want to go to not only the users collection, but we want to specifically set a specific doc. So we don't want to just allow this to add a document with any ID. We want to actually use their user ID, so that way we can easily reference the person that's logged in. This is their user document. So to do that, let's specifically call out a document. So let's say .doc, and then we pass in the actual user ID, or the documents ID, into this method. So we can pass in here the result.user.uid. And then instead of .add, because .add is like for adding to a collection or adding to, for adding to a collection, we are actually going to set the contents of this document. And then when it's done, it's going to hand us back that document reference. And then let's go ahead and console log the doc ref so we can see that. And now when I save here, remember we have to log in. So I'm gonna run the login process. So we log in. Oh, it gave us an error. Okay, so we log in. Okay, boom, I get undefined. Let's see if it worked though. So if we go into our database here, we can refresh. Note that the live functionality of Firestore is kind of exclusive to, you can see live updates happening, but when you add or remove a collection, those things don't get live updated. So you won't see those changes. So don't be alarmed if you run this code and you don't see your users collection, refresh the tab. It should be there. And now any changes that you make to this, so for instance, if we added some more information like new user is true or something like that, if we add some information and then we go and run this method again, because again, remember this is going to run every time we log in, which probably isn't desirable. But you can see there, now you can see the live update happen where it automatically grabbed our document and set that new user to true. Cool, so now we've got some basic stuff going on, right? So like now we're grabbing a specific doc, we're setting the contents of that doc, and it's just a simple object. And notice here, we didn't have to create users because again, this collection didn't exist before we ran this. And so unlike SQL, you're not creating tables, you're not creating columns, you're not doing all that stuff. You are just specifically telling it here's a reference to a document and a collection, you figure it out. And then it will scale the appropriate collections and documents and everything like that. So it's really, really intuitive. But again, make sure that you have a good grasp on the data that you're storing inside of these guys. And try to write typings around that stuff so that you can protect yourself from screwing up your app by just not having consistent data structure. Okay, so this is all fine and dandy, works really well, but again, not the best way to implement this when we're building an enterprise scale application. We have a lot of logic that's being baked into our homepage, and we need to kind of hoist that up and make it so that we're passing it down, and that's going to be a far better experience. So let's go ahead and just like last time, we're going to wrap this, but first let's move everything up. So we open up the app root, and we're going to copy over the component did load, and we're going to paste that into our root. And when the component loads, we're going to add a couple guys onto our default props up here. So we're going to put our session, which is going to be any, it's going to be optional, and then we're going to have DB, our database, and we're going to put that as any as well for right now. So we're going to say DB any, and then again, we're not setting that right off the bat, so we can just do a question mark on that as well. Okay, so now down here, we want to say this.default props.db equals firebase.firestore, and we're getting our compiler error because we need to pull over our imports. So let's get those guys over. And then we're going to change this auth to be default props.auth on auth changed. And then we will change this here to default props.session equals session. So now we've got the same functionality, but it's now being handled inside of the root, and then it's being passed in as a prop. So one thing that we're going to have to do is, again, because we need this to render now, after the component loads, it's going to start Firestore and then start this, and then it's going to set our session. So we need this to update. And if you don't know, Stencil won't update a state item, so it won't fire a render unless we reset the value. So default props here, we're just editing these values. We need to reset them in order to get it to fire a render. So to do that, we just need to go ahead and say this.default props. And actually, let's do this after both of these guys, because we have it setting once here and then once here, both of which are going to need this. So we're going to do this.default props equals, and then we do an object, because this is an object. And we're going to do ... our spread operator, this.default props. So this is a very simple way to reinitialize with the same value. So we're setting default props equal to itself, and we're going to do that same thing up here after it gets the session data. So both of these are going to fire a render, and that's going to render our state. And the only other thing that we'll need to change here is DB is no longer one. We don't have these typings anymore, so let's get rid of those. And two, we're now going to be passing all of these in now because we're passing them into our default props. We're going to be passing all of these guys in via props. And again, we can set all of these guys to any for right this second. Okay, so this should, again, this should give us the same results, but this time we're passing in our data from the root down into our page. So let's go ahead and refresh over here. So that should give us the same result, but what we're going to notice the first time we reload here is that we get the login with GitHub when we should, in theory, have the actual session data passed in. Well, that is because when our component props load, they get passed in, and so we need to actually reinitialize these guys when they do the render. So we need to do that same spread operator down here inside our default props so that we get that new value the second that it gets updated. And so now when we save, this is going to refresh, and now we get the same result. And so we can, one more time, just go into our application tab. Let's clear our site data. Let's refresh, click our button, log in, and we should see, boom, there is the same result, except again, now we're not passing in a bunch of stuff, or now we're not importing a bunch of stuff in our page. We're instead passing it down via props. Okay, so let's take this to the ultimate extreme. This is what most of you are probably here for. Let's go ahead and rip all this Firestore stuff out, and let's implement a database service so that we're not doing this, we're not doing all of this Firebase stuff. This is probably good enough. I think if you're the average user and you don't want to worry about mucking around too much, I mean, you could probably just do firebase.firestore.firestore. Oops, Firestore. You can probably just do that guy there, and because we're importing this into our app root here, we will be able to get those typings, and we could just do firebase.user here, and all would be well. I mean, this works. However, I have a a serious thing about putting service wrappers on things. And it gives us there's a couple reasons for doing it, but let's go ahead and scale one up here for our database service, just like we did for our auth service. So we're going to create a new file called database.ts. And then in here, we are going to copy and paste a bit of code. So we have made our own, just like with our auth service, we have made our own, oops, wrong one. We have made our own database service wrapper for Firebase or Firestore, and it makes it a little bit easier to work with, as well as it kind of again just allows you to wrap some custom functionality. A common use case or common thing that you might run into is, for instance, like we showed with auth, sometimes you have different implementations via desktop versus native. And so this gives you a place, the service gives you a place where you can kind of wire up both of those functionalities, import all the things you need, the libraries you need, and then set all that functionality up that's custom to your application. And then you're kind of abstracting that stuff away from your home pages and all these other pages, because what's going to happen is 3 months down the road, you might decide you want to switch over to Mongo, or you want to try some other kind of solution. And and most of these NoSQL services all use documents and all use this and that. And so as long as these methods don't change and the structure of the data that's being handed back don't change, you should be able to rip and replace this database service without having to go into every single page in your application to rip and replace all the Firebase stuff. And you can also make some helpful methods. So for instance, here in our database service, we've got a nice little find method that you just pass in the collection name and the ID, and it hands you back just the data. So it takes care of getting the document and awaiting all that stuff, and it just passes you back the document with its ID. And so again, these are just helpful little things that you can kind of set up once you start wrapping your services in these service wrappers. Okay, so cool. So we've got our database service. Let's go ahead and re-implement this same example. So we don't need to import our Firebase typings, and I'm pretty sure that's going to make our app homepage angry. Yes, it did. And what we're going to do now is we can get rid of this default props there. Actually, no. Let's instead we want to initialize our database service. And you can see our database service, really simple. We just do new database service. So let's import this guy. So import database service from services/database. And then now we can start this guy up just like we start our auth service. So new database service. And we've started that up, and we're doing the exact same thing. So we're saving it to DB, and then we're going to pass that down as a prop. And everything else should stay the same. We don't need to change anything else. We just rip and replace that implementation. Now when we save this guy, we should get a happy compiler. Cool. So we're getting the same result in the browser over here. Boom. Except now we are using the database via our service wrapper. And I was very careful when I made this to just, again, wrap around the methods. So this DB collection stuff should still work just as it did. Let me verify this. So we'll say collection here, collection. Yeah, collection get. Yeah, so it returns a get, which actually might change things. So cool. So we've got, again, our implementation of this is a slight bit different. You can access directly the collection by doing this.collection. So it actually will return you collection this service. Yeah, it will return you. This should just continue to work. So let's go ahead and give it a whack. So if we go into our application here, we will clear our site data and refresh, and we will log in with GitHub. And as long as it doesn't give us an error here, boom, no error. So it didn't catch any errors here. It looks like it's working the same. But let's go ahead and implement this with one of the methods we made, because why have a cool database service if you're not going to use it? So let's do db dot, and then let's look through here. We've got a method for update, I believe is what it is. Get add list all Oh no, I lied. Oh yeah, there it is. Update. So we pass in the collection name, the ID, and then the data. So again, this allows you to wrap this because like this is like very Firebasey, but an update seems very friendly. So now I can do db.update users, and then the second argument is the ID. So users, there's the ID, and then the third argument is the lump of data we want to set. So let's go ahead and cut this guy out, paste that in there. And you can see here's where our Firestore typings are going to give us an error because they don't have an update method that only exists on our database service. So again, just like we did with our other one, we're going to swap out this for database service. And it's going to automatically import that. If not, import it at the top of your file. Let's put this in alphabetical order because I am OCD like that. Cool. So now we've got as we see here, we've got the auth service, database service, and you'll note those are just the names when you're using TypeScript. Those are just the name of the class. So it's whatever the class name is. That's automatically going to come with the typings. So all the methods and all that stuff, and it'll even come with all the docs if you put doc blocks on your code. So let's say old user is true in this case. And the cool thing about our update method is it's going to leave everything else in place. So it's going to merge with the original data that's there. So this shouldn't, it should either create a brand new document if they don't exist, or it will actually go about updating their old document. So let's go ahead and just for funsies, let's go ahead and refresh here. We're going to run the login with GitHub, and actually let's keep our database open here. Okay, so we've got our database open here. Now, if I log in with GitHub, boom, old user true. So there is a walkthrough of just implementing our database service as well as some stuff for like session. So figuring out if your user is logged in or not. Super helpful stuff. And there's so much in this database service wrapper. And there's even more stuff you can add. Again, anytime that I find myself working with Firebase, I basically, if I don't have a method or if I don't have something, or if I do something repetitively, I come in here and I make a wrapper, a method for it, where I can simplify my life like this update here, which makes things so much easier. Okay, cool. So, so I'm going to wrap it there. So hopefully this was helpful to you guys. And if it was, consider giving it a subscribe and ringing the little, the little bell. There's my little mic thing. So ring the bell, and that way you get notified of the next video. We're going to continue this on. I think this is a lot longer than I thought it was going to be, but we got a lot done. We covered a lot of ground, and I think you guys will be set up to start playing around. And next week we'll actually get into adding multiple documents, maybe making a simple to-do app, and it's all for, again, this secret project that we've been fleshing out in these videos. So by the end of this project, we'll have an actual fully working product that you guys will be able to use. And we can't tell you what it is because that would ruin all the fun. But if you guys subscribe and like and share, we can all, just keep having fun together here every week. So tune in next week. We'll hit some more Firestore stuff, and we'll see you then. Go tend to my hangover. See you guys.